Jesus calls the Pharisees a lot of names in Matthew chapter 23. They are hypocrites, not practicing what they preach. They are blind guides. They are absurdly imbalanced moralists, straining out a gnat and swallowing a camel. They are whitewashed tombs. They are serpents, vipers, and murderers. They are the very apex of evil in the history of God's people, according to verse 33 to 36. Yet what he calls them at the end staggers all belief. He calls them children. He calls them chicks, even. Matthew chapter 23, from verse 37. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those sent to you, how often I have longed to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings. But you were not willing. Notice first who Jesus claims to be in this verse. He is the one who has sent prophets to Jerusalem over the centuries. He is the one always longing to gather Israel. He is the one who feels an ancient and parental love for the people of God. Jesus weeps over Jerusalem. Luke chapter 19 verse 41 makes that explicit. He weeps over Jerusalem because he has always wept over Jerusalem. And now he stands in its midst, an unschooled rabbi. Seemingly, he's in a minority of one, just taking on the religious establishment. Yet notice the towering eye he unleashes in this teaching. How often I would have longed to gather your children. Jesus considers himself the driving force of Israel's history. Here is the Lord God among us, and what is he like? He's like a mother hen. It's an incredible change of tone here in verse 37. We've had 36 verses of blistering condemnation, yet in none of those verses does Jesus mention his own divine identity. Those assessments might have been made by any religious observer with the eyes to see it. The Pharisees themselves would have considered it a critique from below, but now Jesus invokes his ancient authority as the Lord of Israel. In verse 37, he draws himself up to his true height, and when he does so, how does he appear to the people? As a hen gathering chicks. This is the true heart of Zion's king. He has an intense motherly concern for these snakes, these killers, these whitewashed tombs. He longs to gather them. Whatever we've said about the warrant for harsh words and ridicule in this chapter, and there is warrant for that, we must recognize that the last word is grace. Jesus is not writing off these wicked men, he is pursuing them. And the pointing of his finger serves the welcome of his wings. This should also be our heart if ever we have to offer stinging rebuke. The point is not to crush, but to gather. And these Pharisees, unfortunately, are having none of it. And so the real condemnation of these self-righteous Pharisees is not so much their resistance to the rebukes as their refusal of the relationship. It is grace that constitutes them as sinners, the offer of mercy which occasions their rejection. Sometimes talking about God's love and God's anger can become very abstract. This verse makes it personal. The love of God has shown up among us, and his name is Jesus. He is the eternal gatherer, the mother hen who longs to reconcile all people to the Father. So then, what place does anger have? Well, Christ's anger is the response of love to his willful children who refuse his grace. Love and anger are not opposed. Neither does Jesus stand equally behind both love and anger, as though one day he feels like being angry, one day he feels like being loving. No, God is love. Everything that stands behind Matthew chapter 23 is about love. God is love, and his anger is only ever a response to the thwarting and the refusal of this love. He does not become angry in spite of those motherly wings. He becomes angry because of those motherly wings. So then, in the words of Charles Wesley, fly, sinners, fly into those arms of everlasting love.